hope you're well. I hope your week has gone good so far. And thank you very much for popping in today to see what's going on. As we always do, I want to put up this important message to start off proceedings. Just to remind you that this is for education purposes only. Please do your own due diligence on anything you see here. Make sure you follow trading plans, manage risk on every trading action. That's on entry and exit, consistent with your own personal trading objectives and financial situation. Let's just have a look at what's happening on the headlines first, and then we'll have a look at some charts and see what we can find that might be interesting to have a look at. So if we check out what happened in the US overnight, the US indices managed to eke out small gains across the board, going with record highs. Certainly down, the S&P 500 are still looking very positive. The Nasdaq still has a little bit of catch up to do after a pullback last week. Nvidia released earnings, one of the most exciting companies to do so, after the bell and beat on both EPS and revenue expectations. Having said that, it is slightly down in after hours trading. There was slight underperformance on its data network centers, which the markets didn't like. But overall, a good result for Nvidia. I wouldn't be surprised to see it popping to the upside again fairly soon. US futures are trading cautiously today, um, with obviously that Nvidia result reflected in the Nasdaq futures down about 0.3%. Asian markets are generally mixed in early trading. The Hang Seng's the performer. ASX, when last I looked, was holding around neutral. And European futures are pointing to a cautiously positive open. US dollar index, it's a mid-range sort of day today, to be honest. We've seen the US dollar index trading mid-range, gold pausing underneath 3,400. Copper also trading within a short-term range. Really hasn't moved very much on any of these since we last met on Monday. And the oil price is mirroring the other commodity action and also trading within a range. It is slightly down as to where it was at the beginning of the week, but a little bit of uncertainty across the sector as we wait some key data coming out later today and tomorrow, which I think may be creating just a little bit of a wait and see sort of attitude with markets. Bitcoin is retesting the 112 support level that was breached earlier in the week. So we had that move through it, and now we're getting a bounce to the upside, but it hasn't yet breached it when last I looked, but we'll check out a chart in a moment. And as I said, some key data out over the next couple of days. We've got some US preliminary GDP tonight. Probably the most important of the three GDP numbers that are released. We get the prelim, then the advanced, and then the final. This is the one that usually causes most surprises. So it's worthwhile keeping an eye on. And we've got the weekly jobs in focus later. We've got the PCE data out tomorrow, the Fed's most looked at inflation measure. We're actually going to run a special in a circle tomorrow on that. And also just to announce we're running in a circle tonight with a critical market update. So keep your eyes out for those two sessions running over the next couple of days. Obviously, the PCE data is fairly late for many of you, but if you can make it along, it always surprises me. I always have massive respect for those who do so. So I look forward to seeing you there if you can make it. So having looked at the headlines, let's check out some charts. Let's start with the S&P 500, which should be coming up on your screen right now. And you can see there is that constant test of record highs on the futures contract around about this 64.75 level. We are slightly higher now in trend. You can see the impact of that Nvidia result towards the back end of the US session. But in Asia, despite a little bit of follow through initially, we bounced quite hard. And so we're now back up in positive territory on the US futures. If we look at the Nasdaq, then you can see here the slightly bigger response, obviously, to that Nvidia result on the 30-minute chart. Again, we've had this bounce in Asia. I would leave both of these alone in light of the data that's come out later, unless you're trading a very short time frame. But if we look on the daily chart for context, you can see Once again, we found a level that we've tested on multiple occasions around about 23,500 on the Nasdaq futures contract. So again, worthwhile to keep an eye on for a breach of that. But as I said, unless you're trading very short time frames, you might be advised just to stay away from the data tonight. Is the US dollar, as I said, in mid-range? So not much going on here. Very clear lines in the sand to the top and bottom. Have a look at some US crosses in a moment. And in terms of gold, gold's had a fairly positive week. We've got a temporary resistance here at this, not surprisingly, round number of 3,400. You can see there it was last tested back here early August, and now we're testing it again. Little shy today in Asia. If we look at the 30-minute chart, we're really just sort of seeing a rejection of a move through 3,400 and pull back to around about 3,385 at the moment. My feeling is that this may be a pause point. You can see that double bottom there with confirmation point. So I had two tests of that on the 30-minute already. So it'll be interesting to see whether that holds or not. I'm going to quickly skip through copper and oil. As I said, both are trading range bound. Copper in a really tight range. That was that tariff-induced drop at the beginning of the month. But you can see there, really over the last couple of weeks, have been trading in a really tight range, waiting for some more information. We did have a rejection yesterday, but moved through that support. So it looks as though markets are happy with where it is for right now. And oil just after that key drop that we had this double bottom bounce to the upside to retest 66. But then again, we sort of pulled back again. So oil is really trading between 66 and around about 63 on the daily chart. If we look at the hourly chart, you can see there no appetite at all from the buyers to take it through 64, 64 in the short term. So a test really of 64 looks more likely than a test to the upside of this. Should we breach that, it might be worth keeping an eye on for a potential move down to around about 63.50. As for Bitcoin, let's just drag this chart to the end. Again, on the hourly chart, you can see choppy action in Asia today. If we look at the daily chart for context, there was that breach of that key 112 level that we saw around about 11,150 as we speak. Just a pullback from there in Asia today. I will be watching that level to the upside at 112,500 and to the downside around about 109,500. Should we get some selling pressure to the downside again? We're there early part of the week. But certainly, there doesn't look the appetite to break out to the upside. But again, interesting to see what the response to the data is over the next couple of days. Checking out some US dollar crosses. Which I will do right now. Thanks to everybody who's popped in, to David and Wayne and Roger. Thank you very much for saying hello. It's always really appreciated. If you wouldn't mind just clicking a little like on that thumbs up thing, if you can, at some stage, that would be always appreciated. Right, so we've got this Euro USD I thought was worth having a look at. You can see a fairly significant bounce in the euro on the hourly chart. This sort of looks stuck, really. Even if we do breach this short-term resistance at around about 116.55, I'm not sure there's much upside to this, possibly around about 15 to 20 pips. But there is a high probability trade. Should we breach this level here at 116.70? I think a move up, possibly to test 117 might be on the card. Worthwhile keeping an eye on. And again, probably data dependent. Maybe a short-term fill here for that 18 to 20 pips move should we breach 116, but it's not compelling at all. If we look at the US yen, then again, you can see a pattern of indecision right now on the 30-minute chart. Let's put it on the daily chart for context. And you can see the importance of this level. It does look rather technically important. We've been trading, again, as with many assets, in a range this week between about 147 and 148.25 there. We are moving towards the bottom of this range. That was last Friday's candle, so watch that. as a key level. If we look at the hourly chart, you can see there, it's really, there's not much in this, possibly around about 25 pips to retest 147.07. And a breach of that might offer an opportunity down to maybe, again, maybe 25 pips here. So I'm not really liking this chart in terms of a potential trade. One that I did see though when I was looking this morning, I sort of the GB pound Aussie caught my eye. We've had a bounce to the downside off this resistance level at 209.40. You can see over the last, really this week, the GB pound has been quite weak. Looks as though there may be a pause point going on here. We've had 4 attempts over the last 4 days. A breach 207.36. And should we do so, then uh, perhaps a move down to around about this 206.66 level. If we look at the longer time frame, look at the hourly time frame, just to bring this up a little bit. We've got a short-term potential move uh, there. I would actually move this down probably around about this. Lots of wick rejections to the downside. So a breach of this could be very significant. We've really been trading within a very, very tight range of less than 12 pips for the last 10 hours. And so if we do get a move through this level, 207.25, or let's say 207.26, I think there is a potential 60 pip move to the downside. Obviously, we've got a nice round number there at around about 207. So I would be using this level here, should you be in this trade, a potential point at which you would trail a stop over to break even, and maybe even take some off the table as well, and maybe a partial close of half a position, and see if it continues to run down towards this 206.66 level. That's going to be difficult to beat, so we'll keep that on tap, and maybe go back and have a look at that in a moment. If you want something a little different, then there is some interesting action on the Aussie Hong Kong dollar this morning. And you can see we've had a uh, bounce here. We had some temporary resistance on the daily chart over the last 4 trading days. I'm going to breach today. If we look at this on a shorter time frame, you'll see why this looks sort of attractive. You can just pop this on here just for a bit more detail. But what I'm seeing is a potential line in the sand here at around about 507.75 that might be of interest. A possible move up to around about 50, maybe even 508.50. So possibly around about 80 or 90 pips on this. Now, of course, the spread on this is slightly wide. It's around, um, if you've got a pro account, it's around about 4.2 pips. So just bear that in mind with your down to 3 at the minute. Just bear that in mind with your calculations as to whether this might be one for you or not. Of course, um, should we be interested in this, then it's very worthwhile waiting for an end of candle breach of that level. So there's just one a little off the normal track, but so the primary chart of the day for FX is GB pound Aussie short, but keep an eye on Aussie Hong Kong dollar, weakness in the Hong Kong dollar, a little bit of strength in the Aussie today. Okay, let's check out some stocks. Just flick accounts over. Just check out the ASX. Okay, that should give us some access. So let's have a look at a couple we're looking at earlier in the week. Here's 360 ASX. You can just see we're pausing around about this $46 mark. Doesn't look as though there's much upside left in this for right now. Again, as I said, ASX. Let me just give you a quick update. Yeah, ASX is still trading 0.17 down. Resources getting, if we're looking at the sectors, resources aren't doing particularly well today. Uh, Down about 0.6%. Industrials, real estate, financials all performing. So IEL, really interesting bounce on this. Um, So we're talking about this previously as a potential chart to watch. Should it breach 505? There it has. It's shot up today. I think this is a chart worth considering. There's a fairly big gap to fill. I'm just going to check in and see um, if there's been any corporate news on this today that's precipitated that move to the upside. It looks as though there probably has. Yep. So we had the F25, sorry, final year 2025 results announcement, um, pre-market, and that's obviously what the markets have responded to. The fact that it's trading near the highs of the session on a high volume candle, you can see there. There was the opening bar, a little bit of profit taken straight away, and then buyers coming back in. Watch for a breach of today's high, possibly toward checking on the last hour of the session. See there's some buying coming in. Maybe 615 is a good thing to have a look at. A couple of others we checked in earlier. BVS doesn't look that good. Neither does AX1. Let me just quickly cheat a little bit. Qantas is up today. Let's just have a check out on Qantas. Very big move today on Qantas. Excuse me. Move over $12, which is technically significant, not least because it's an all-time high. Again, let me just check corporate news and just sort of see if that's the cause of this 9% move. It must be yet again results today in Qantas, very particular result, and that's just breached this level here. Just got to be careful with ASX stocks at the moment, just because we are reporting season in that. A couple of others that may be worth just keeping on your radar. Worley, same story. Um, but to me, that really just looks as though it could get caught up in the nonsense here. Um, and let's just check out other airline stocks or airline related stocks are doing okay. So we're seeing about a 2.8 move up in Flight Centre, about a 1.84 in Webjet. Let's just check out Flight Centre because that feels sort of interesting. If you're not in this already, if you are in this, it's worthwhile holding on. But if you're not in this, worthwhile waiting for a breach of 1330. And we'll just check in on Zipco up to $4. That's a trade that's going very well, obviously, on this. And you can see there, we've just had a little bit of a pause around about 410. A breach over that suggests further moves to the upside. Obviously, on a monthly chart, you can see this is plenty of distance to go. Possibly a target in the short term around about 534, which would be a very good return. But this looks great. You can see over the last 6 months, it's had a very, very strong run. So the next point on this would be a breach of 410, worth checking in the last hour of the trading day. So the two I'm going to give you on the ASX are Zipco, that you can see in front of you. Just watch IEL. As I said, if we get a breach of 615 towards the back end of the session, we could see a gap close um, up to around about 740 in the medium term. It's not going to be unlikely to be a significant, or it's more likely to be a slower move on this. So this is one to be patient with, but this sort of international student placement and English language teaching company looking pretty good this stage. On to the US, let's just have a look at a couple we track regularly. Tesla still refused to breach this this 345 with any conviction. Once again, a failed move beneath that, but still looks great. For those people who got in around about this $300 mark or even on this pullback here, it's served very well. At this stage, you could look at 354 if you're not in this already. Too early to. This is not a reversal; it's just a retest of 345 at this stage. It looks like. Um, so the problem with 354 is you haven't got much to the upside now until around about 363. I think that's the higher probability entry on Tesla. You can see there if we breach that, that's a very, very clear run up. So I think be patient with this. You've got about what's that? That's about $18 difference between where it is now and that level. So that's around about 4.5%. So just watch that over the next couple of days. Again, may respond well to data if it comes in favorably. Home builders, they've paused again from a data point of view. PHM were one that we referenced earlier, watching for a breach of around about 134. And Robinhood have just failed to breach, and this is why it's called a resistance, failed to breach that level at 114.57. We like the airlines earlier in the weekend. American Airlines are still playing with this key level at 1321. It's a difficult one, this, because we had this false breakout here. This is a good example of a liquidity zone, um, sort of around between about 1310 and 1330. So not jumping up and down about that. Zoom had a good day at the office, but is a long way off a place that you would be interested in trading it. So the US is IEL still going strong, 32% up today. It's just mental. Yeah, it's going up 32% for a reason. Okay, so right, let's have a look at Carnival. I haven't had a look at Carnival for a couple of weeks. Oh yes, we like Carnival. This has been one we've referenced many times over the last few months. And you can see here, there, we had a breach at the start of the week of 31, and we've continued up from there. In terms of where this at, we're sort of at levels not seen since pandemic times. So this still looks strong. I like Carnival as a company. Let me just quickly pop onto Trading View and see if I can get a longer term picture of this. Oh, let's do all. Okay, so that was the impact of the pandemic. Obviously, this is a stock that was slammed fairly significantly. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, you can't see that. I'm going to try and flick it across. If not, I'll just do a snip. Um, there we go. It's come up. How amazing is that? Once every 5 times it does this. So you should be able to see a trading view chart on the screen now. There's that 32.34 where it finished last night. You can see the importance of this level. I'd probably be tempted actually to drag this line up to around about 33, 33, 32. I think that breach of that level sees this possibly up to around about $40. Maybe that, yeah, about $40 where I've got my, so let me just put another line on here now so you can just sort of see that a little more easily. So yeah, that would be a target where I've just put that second yellow line around here. So that will be a significant move to the upside um, around about 30%. I would be tempted to start trailing stops at around about 30, possibly even before 36, but 36 looks like a potential pause point. So this is not bad from a short to medium term hold. Um, I think, let me just put it on a daily chart actually, just to have a better look at that. So there you go. So you can see there's the gap on the daily chart. Let's just take this out a little bit. Got to go back quite a long way before it. It's flicked back to monthly, hasn't it? Typically. That's why I don't like trading. Let's put it on a weekly chart. So you can see this is all pandemic stuff. So we are looking to retest what happened during the pandemic. So a move up to 40 might not be bad. It's an interesting, again, an interesting little spin. So keep an eye on Carnival on a break of, let's say, 33.30. But you could even suggest that on the daily chart it's ready now. Um, so that would be my US chart of the day for today. So that completes our little meander around the markets today. So as I said, don't forget, we've got a critical market update, bit of a deeper dive tonight on YouTube streaming. I'm going to try and do the PCE data as a go to webinar with YouTube stream. We'll give that another go. As I said, if you can make it along to that, that'd be great. If you're part of it regularly on the GoToWebinar scene, I'll make sure you get an invite. If you are a YouTube subscriber only, that's great too. Just watch out. That'll kick off around about 10:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For those of you elsewhere on the planet, it's obviously going to be a little more sociable than that. It should create an interesting market move in many of the major asset classes. So it'll be good fun to see the markets respond to that live. It'll be about 20 minutes. So if you can make it along, that would be awesome. Either way, enjoy the rest of your day. We might see some of you later. Thank you very much for popping in today. It's always a pleasure and a privilege to offer you something to think about. Cheers. I'm not sure they will, Michael. Um, thank you anyway. The company I was looking at was Carnival. I think was the one you referred to. Markets by the futures will sell off tomorrow. At this stage, not significantly so. But it will be data dependent. It'll depend how that prelim GDP weekly jobs come out later. Markets feel as though they're in waiting at the moment. Have a good one, Wayne. Cheers, David. Thank you very much, everybody. You guys take care. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.